Welcome everybody to Spiritual Experiencers. And my name is Catherine. I'm so happy that you're here with us today. Today we have a wonderful guest, and I had the privilege of being in some sharing groups with our guest many times, and he's a beautiful soul. His name is Andrew Oxman. So I'd like to introduce you all to Andrew. And Andrew, welcome. So happy you're here with us.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for this opportunity to serve. I honor each and every one of us who are here tonight, our spirit, our purpose on earth, our reason for being. One of the things my guardian angel continually reminds me of is simply to breathe, just to breathe, which reminds me to be present with her and available to receive her guidance, her comfort, and her teaching. I will admit I'm a bit nervous. This is the first time I've ever shared my spiritual history and experience this way. And I've been in meditation, and I had a lot of things written out to share. But when I went into meditation, my guardian made it clear, no, it's not going to be that way. There is another way this is going to happen. And so I've learned to trust her, because when I follow her lead, things go far better than I could have ever thought up on my own. So I'll just start briefly sharing. In my family, my mother was raised Quaker, and then she eventually focused more on Episcopalian or Protestant churches. And she was a spiritual person. She valued spirituality, and those are some of the best conversations we ever had were of spiritual matters. And she was somewhat of a mystic herself. I learned that later in life. My father was raised Jewish, but he didn't bring that to our family. I think he might have been either agnostic or atheist, I don't know which, because we never talked about his spiritual life. But he valued nature, and that's something I appreciate from him, is the value of nature. And the first spiritual experience I remember as a child was at an Easter sunrise service, when I saw the sunrise coming up, and I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and the pink in the sky, it was just stunning to me. And I realized that comes from something that's beyond human. Human beings do not create sunrises. And I realized that there's something bigger in and beyond the world, but I didn't have words for that. I just knew it. It was an intuitive feeling. And the second experience I remember was as a teenager, when I was just in a normal moment of life crossing a street to a friend's house. And I received a download of knowledge. And it said this: the light that goes out of people's eyes when they die is the soul. Now, I was not a spiritual person growing up. I didn't value spirituality. But I knew those words to be absolute truth. I didn't question them. I had no idea why they came to me or where they came from. I just knew it was true, and I never questioned it. And I never told anybody about that. I must have been maybe 16 years old, somewhere around there. And I had never experienced anything like that. But it was somewhat comforting to me, because I just accepted that as a spiritual truth. And I recognized the truth of it when I was an adult and my father passed away. And my sister and my mother and I walked into the hospital room. And what I felt instinctively was that his body was there, but his soul was not. It was such a clear difference to me. And later in the morning, after we returned home and I had a chance to take a nap, I woke up and I felt my father's spirit next to me, standing next to the bed. And I knew it was him. And he was just there on the other side, kind of checking in on me and letting me know he had crossed over. And so that spiritual truth that I received as an adolescent became an actual experience as an adult when I was in my 30s. And I'm always grateful for that. It's one of those moments of comforting, the comfort of spiritual truth, and then the experience of it in life. As a teenager, I made a vow to God very unexpectedly. I was in a moment where I was facing possible death. I had gone out to ride storm surf on my boogie board, really big waves. They were too big and chaotic for me to ride, and I had to go back to shore. And on the way back through the zone where the waves break, I looked back and I saw a huge wave coming at me, and I knew instinctively I could die. And from my chest, not from my mind or my brain, but from my chest came a vow. And it was this: God, if you let me live, I will do anything you want me to do. I didn't plan on making that. I was not a spiritual person. And I've since come to believe that it came from my soul, not from my mind. And then I promptly forgot about that vow until later on, in my 40s, actually. But I did clearly survive that wave. I never took a chance like that again. And after graduating from high school, I moved to the Boston area. And that was when, looking back as an adult, I noticed a whole series of guided moments that led me to fulfilling that vow. And I had no idea it was happening until I looked back decades later. For instance, there was a moment when I was considering joining the Air Force very spontaneously. And I walked in and I filled out the related paperwork. And I was about to sign it. And all of a sudden, this very strong intuition came into me and said, no, you're not. Don't do this. And here I am, 18 years old, in front of these big Air Force recruiter men. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? How will I look if I walk out and just don't do this? But the inspiration, the intuition was so strong that I couldn't ignore it. And so I put down the pen and I left the office. And shortly after, I applied to and was accepted at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. And in my second semester there, no, pardon me, my second year, sophomore year, I noticed this class called Spiritual Autobiography, and it just instinctively drew my attention. So I signed up for it. And we read all these autobiographical books by Black Elk Speaks was one of them. Rainer Maria Rilke, and a number of others who were just so inspiring for me. Walden was one of the books we read. And that was when I discovered my soul, that I have a soul, and that I loved writing about spirituality. We were required to write 3 papers in response to what we were reading. And I just discovered my love of spirituality and writing, and that was my awakening. And after then, there were a series of other guided moments. I was led to a Seth book, The Nature of Personal Reality, which drew me more deeply into awareness of the soul. And that book and the awareness that came from it led me to decide to change, not to change my major, but that I didn't want to pursue my major because it wouldn't really fulfill my soul. But I finished my degree anyway, knowing that that was the smart thing to do. And I trusted that God would guide me in the right direction for my life. After that, I was led to one of my favorite books ever called Emmanuel's Book. Emmanuel was a spiritual, beautiful, loving spiritual being who was channeled by a woman named Pat Rodegast. And so there are four of those books compiled by Pat Rodegast and Judith Stanton. And they are probably the most comforting spiritual books I've ever read. And I've read them over and over again. Around that time, after reading Emmanuel's book, I was in my late 20s. I was first introduced also to A Course in Miracles. I opened it up, I took a brief look, I read a little bit, and I realized this book is really important, but it is so far beyond my ability to comprehend. I can't even get into this right now. So I just let it go and continued forward. But I noticed something happening. I started to have these near panic episodes of losing my parents. I don't know why that happened, but it just started happening. And so somehow the idea came to me to pray to God to reveal himself to me in some way for comfort in my life. And so I'm in my late 20s. I was interested in yoga at the time, and I was doing a standing pose in the morning, and I looked over at the windowsill, and there was a mourning dove on the windowsill looking in at me. And I looked into the eye of the dove, and it was revealed to me as the eye of God. And it was such a powerful experience of being shown the omnipresence of God. It was like this flash of a glimpse into the omnipresence of God. It was so unforgettable. And I realized, and I was shown, God is everything, everywhere, all the time, inside time, outside time. There is nothing that is not God. And I will always remember that. It's indelibly inscribed into my being. But I didn't tell anyone about that experience. I didn't know who I could talk about that to, and I just kept it inside of myself. In my 30s, after I started graduate school to become a therapist, I moved to an in-law apartment in a rural area, very beautiful wooded area. And I chose to live alone because I was terrified of living alone. It was the first time, and I knew I had to face my fear. And so I did. And during that time, I just really focused on being present with my soul a little more at a time. And a friend of mine lent me a book about approaching gardening with a spiritual outlook, which I did. And I found it to really work, speaking to the plants, asking their permission for their harvest, talking to them with love, and my garden flourished. And one day, I decided to apply those ideas to an apple tree that was at the corner of the garden. My landlords at that time had a beautiful, huge garden, and they offered me a section of it where I had my garden. But they also had an apple orchard right next to the garden. And so I decided to speak just very openly, open-heartedly to the apple tree that was at the corner of the garden. And as I did so, a dimension of peace opened up to my consciousness. And I beheld this dimension of peace. And in there was no ego, no personality. It was just beingness, pure peace. And I saw orange yellow grid lines crisscrossing through the air. I saw two peaceful male spirits standing next to the garden about 25 feet from me, and they were in a conversation. And this bird flew out of the deciduous trees that were bordering the property and flew to a branch just right above my head, maybe within 3 feet above my head, and started chirping at me excitedly, as if it was talking to me. And I was just in awe. I had no idea that this could happen. And I just remained in awe for a brief period of time. And all of a sudden, this thought came from the back of my mind, questioning, is this real? And the dimension closed, the bird flew off from where it came. I couldn't see the male spirits and I couldn't see the grid lines anymore. And I realized at that moment, that's the difference between my spiritual mind and my ego mind. And when I let my ego mind step in, it closes off spiritual understanding and spiritual perception. And I also learned that we live in a parallel to that dimension, which is here all the time. We are held in that dimension, and that dimension holds us. And I realized also that we are not far from heaven. Heaven is around us all the time. And we can work on ascension, on increasing our consciousness to behold other dimensions. Again, an indelible experience. I will never forget that. It will always be a part of me. After that, I decided to take a course called Spiritual Skills for Daily Living by a clairvoyant teacher and author named Ellen Tadd. She unfortunately passed away earlier, I believe earlier this month. Her books have made a beautiful difference in this world, and her teaching has also. Her teachings have touched many people. And I honor her as my first spiritual teacher. This was a 20-week course in learning how to apply spiritual skills in daily life. And what I remember most of all, her spirit guides led the course. And she was the first person about whom I learned about clairvoyance and meditation, and that we can ask for spiritual guidance and receive spiritual guidance, and the difference between human language and spiritual communication, which can happen in a variety of different ways, images, colors. So I practiced those skills. And what I remember most was receiving different purple colors, nuances of purple. And I had never experienced that before, that I could see with my spiritual eye, the third eye. I didn't have a lot of guidance from the experience, but what I did feel was a sense of sitting before an ocean of spiritual guidance waiting to reach us. And that was a beautiful feeling, a comforting feeling. And I'm grateful for that introduction to reaching into the world of spirit, even if only lightly. My first angel experience, which I did not even recognize was an angel experience because I didn't believe in angels until my 40s. I didn't think about them, except maybe on Christmas Eve services. I always loved Christmas Eve candlelight services because of the candles, the light, the music, and the stories about, the Archangel Gabriel announcing to the wise men, and Mother Mary being, told by Archangel Gabriel and Joseph about the birth of Jesus and the announcements. But beyond that, I didn't even really think angels existed. I thought they only spoke to holy people a long time ago. And why would they have anything to do with Earth? And much less, why would they have anything to do with me in my life? I was at a four-way stoplight, and this was in Hadley, which is right next to Amherst. And the light turned green, and I moved my foot toward the gas, and all of a sudden my body was frozen and my car didn't move. And I couldn't explain why this was happening. I wasn't scared, but it was just strange. I couldn't understand, why is this happening? Why can't I move my body, and why is my car not moving? And all of a sudden, a car rammed through their red light right where I would have been in the middle of that intersection. And I watched it go by, and I watched it zoom down the road. And when I was out of danger, my body was released and I could move again and I could drive. And I just sat there in awe for a moment, like not knowing how to explain that. Stunned, just utterly stunned. And then I kept driving and I just somehow just forgot about the incident because it just didn't make sense to me. I had nowhere to put that in my mind. And so I didn't hold on to it. And again, I never said anything. Shortly after that, I was reintroduced to A Course in Miracles. And at that point in my life, I really felt a need for more spiritual support, and I accepted it. And the way that happened was I was in my car one day on a road trip, and I was stuck in traffic, and I was listening to a CD of music that I was enjoying, spiritual music, religious music. Um, and Jesus came to me on the left side of my body. I didn't see him, but I felt him. I just knew instinctively it was him. It was just clear to me. I didn't question it. And he said to me, I'm a loving being who wants to love you. At that time, I was in a very difficult, dark period of my life. And I knew that he knew that. And he came to me with that message. And then he clarified that he didn't want me to remain attached to my resentment and struggle with Christianity, because in the history of Christianity, there had been such torture and murder, killing in the name of religion. And that was one reason I had real difficulty embracing any kind of organized religion. And I was always wary of the Bible. But I loved spirituality and I loved the spiritual experiences that I was opening up to and learning from. And he was very incisive and so understanding and clear about what to say to me. And and after he finished, he was very clear. He didn't want my feelings about religion to be an impediment in my relationship with him. And I learned that day that I don't need to be related to a religion to have an experience or a relationship with him. It's just a pure one-on-one relationship that he can have with anybody and everybody. And it was so beautiful. I just love that. And then I dreamt twice about A Course in Miracles, and then I just knew, all right, it's time. I need to use this book now. So I did. I embraced it, the text, the workbook. And that book really started bringing me more peace in my mind in a way that nothing else could have. And it led me to surrender my life to God, not in a religious way, but in a way of understanding. I don't know anything. I know nothing. My ego is such a limiting part of me that I need something way, way bigger than me. And I need to let God guide me. And so I did that. I utterly surrendered my life completely and entirely. And after that, I was led to move to a whole new city and a whole new job and a new life. And to where I am living right now, in the condo where I am right now, I was led right here to a new set of friends, to new experiences, and to a whole new chapter in my spiritual evolution. And when I got here, I started renting the condo, and I was led to a book that my landlady at that time had. It was a book by Sophie Burnham called The Book of Angels. And I opened that book, and this was, I love how we're slowly nudged and gently nudged to things before we're even ready for them. But they just open our minds a little bit more at a time until we're really ready to embrace a new understanding. And so I opened the book, I read it, I found it intriguing, but I just wasn't ready to really embrace it. And so I closed it and I put it away. And I continued studying A Course in Miracles for a period of time. And then I had an experience at work, actually, sitting with a client. And right next to that client, I saw this light come out of nowhere. It was a light that is not of this world. It was brighter than anything of this world. It was more beautiful than anything of this world. And it swiftly formed an S shape in the air and it disappeared. And this was like in less than 3 seconds. And I will again never forget that. It was a light that was not of this world. And I realized that I couldn't explain that. And I didn't say anything to anyone. And then shortly after that, I was sitting with my supervisor at that time. And after our session, I looked down and there was this white feather next to my foot. And I had no idea how it got there. I didn't see it when I came into the room. And there it was. And again, I had no explanation. So a little bit at a time, more and more spiritual things were happening to me. And after that, I was in Barnes and Noble one day, and my intuition said, go to the New Age section. And so I followed it. And I looked at the books on the shelf there, and one of them kind of stood out to me. And so I pulled it out. It was a book about angels, and I opened it and started reading it. And that was it. My passion just woke up right then. And I read book after book after book about angels. I was captivated, and I had to learn everything I could about angels. That was in 2008. And being the person that I am, I can't just read about something. I have to know it in my actual experience. And so then I started praying and asking the angels for help and guidance in my life and learning how to recognize how they communicated. And I practiced that over and over again. And what this meant was opening myself up from 5 sensory awareness to 6 sensory awareness. And at that time, I didn't know a lot about 6 sensory awareness, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance. But I chose to follow this path because I just felt drawn to this. Like I had to know this. And I started having new experiences in meditation, in dreams, in waking life. And sometimes it was really scary and uncomfortable. Sometimes it was very comforting. And I realized from reading that there is so much more surrounding us all the time than I ever knew. I had no idea about the angels, the archangels, guardian angels, the love, the help, the comfort, the peace that's waiting to help us and guide us. I read about inviting Archangel Michael into my life, and I said, of course, I'm going to do this. How would I not? And so I invited Archangel Michael into my life 24 hours a day. And shortly after I did that, I woke up one morning and I heard this voice in my mind say, you will get to work at 10 o'clock today. Well, that wasn't my plan. I was going to get to work at 8:30, do some paperwork, meet with a client at 9:15. I was going to run a stress reduction group at 10. And so I said, yeah, right. And I just blew it off. So I got ready for the day. I started driving to work. I turned around because I forgot something and my car just stopped. It just didn't work. And I had to pull it over to the side of the road. I couldn't get it to start. So I had to get it towed to my mechanic, and the timing belts had broken. I had no idea that was going to happen. So once it got towed there, they figured out what was going on. The owner of the mechanic shop, um, very kind woman, offered to drive me to work. So I accepted graciously, and I got to work. I was walking down the hall to the office, and I remembered, or I was reminded to check my watch, and it was 10 o'clock. And I learned that day that Archangel Michael is real. And I learned humility. Wow, there is a power so much greater than I can ever understand and know, that knows things, that understands things, that foresees things. And it was also kind of humorous. And I think Archangel Michael can definitely be humorous. So after that, I joined a psychic development group. I learned about mediumship, psychic skills, the four clairs, and that increased my spiritual awareness. The first time I went to the group and I did an exercise and it worked, I actually got scared and I left the group for about a year. It was too much for me. But after I returned with the same teacher, she's very kind, very wise and trained teacher, and she helped me progress in my skills. And then I started working with another teacher who was really trained in angel communication and angel readings. And she helped me also really advance my skills. And I learned a lot more about communicating with angels, using angel oracle cards, receiving direct communication from angels, and the incredible wisdom they have. We are known. There's nothing I can hide from my guardian angel or from the angels who work with me. Every nuance of my thoughts, feelings, my life, past lives, there's nothing about me that is unknown. But I am beheld with the greatest love, the surest tenderness, total compassion. And that's what brings such comfort and safety and security in trusting the angelic realm. So I became certified in angel communication, and over the next period of years, I just gave hundreds of angel oracle card readings, and I learned how compassionate and loving angels are, and how ready they are to give help. I ended up over time working mostly with Mother Mary and Archangel Michael, and I learned the incredible love of Mother Mary, the compassion she has, the tenderness, and the wisdom. And I had received an angel reading. One of my first 2 or 3 angel readings, I was given the encouragement to write a book. To me, write a book about angels. What do I know? Who am I to do this? And it took me quite a period of time to actually start that. And once I did, I was led into deeper and deeper research about angels. And I learned there is such a history of research about angels over the course of humanity. Jewish mystical understanding about angels goes back thousands of years, and Christian understanding, and the Hindu awareness of mystical reality in Autobiography of a Yogi. And so I've just researched and studied angels for years now, and discovered so many authors and so many viewpoints and thousands of angel experiences that people have had through the course of humanity. And in the 1990s, there was a real upsurge. I think at least 400 books about angels were published in the 1990s. And authors such as Sophie Burnham, Joan Wester Anderson, Flower Newhouse, she was an incredible author about angels and teacher. She had herself been an angel prior to incarnating on Earth numerous times. And her last incarnation that I'm aware of was this in the last century. And she's one of the teachers who most inspired me, one of the authors who most inspired me. And it was while reading one of her books in 2016 that my guardian angel came forth consciously in my presence. And what I read in Flower Newhouse's teaching totally matches my experience with my guardian angel. She always comes forward just behind my right shoulder. Her bearing and her presence are absolutely consistent. What I learned in my psychic and mediumship studies is that every being, human and non-human, has what's called an energy signature. And the energy signature is the energy of our soul, our unique spirit. And it remains consistent throughout all of our lifetimes to all of our existence. And my guardian angel's energy signature is, again, utterly consistent. I know it's her every single time. And at first, when she was coming forward, I didn't know what to make of this. How can this be happening? I was, intrigued and excited, but it was surprising, and I didn't know what to do with this. And eventually, as she kept coming forward, and she would come forward, at just the most mundane moments at any time. I'm washing the dishes, I'm driving my car, I'm going to bed, I'm watching a movie, and she would just make herself present. And eventually I learned to still my mind and just see if I can hear and listen to a message that she may have for me. And then she started working with me because I opened up to allowing her to do so. I think she helped me to understand that I could do this. I would say that I know that she helped me to understand that I can do this because it wasn't me who figured it out. I think she was already training me at that point or working with me. So she would just give me little messages at first, like, go to bed now, or stop eating now if I'm eating too much, or give yourself a break, and just encouraging me to take better care of myself. Very kind, and very humorous. One time I was eating too much and I knew it, emotional eating. And she sent one word into my mind, and the word was walrus. And I cracked up and I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. It was so funny. And it just showed me the incredible intimacy with which she knows my mind and what I'm receptive to, because she knew I would react that way. And I laughed and I laughed and I got the message. And since that time, I really did make an effort to eat less. One word. It's so beautifully incredible that she could do that. And so slowly I started opening up more and more to her. And I realized that she's with me all the time. Another one of my favorite authors is Lorna Byrne, a Catholic woman from Ireland who has seen angels since she first opened her eyes as a baby, and has had angels teaching her and working with her entire life. And she's now written numerous books, and I've read most of them. And what she describes about angels is so beautiful and so understanding, and the teaching that they've given her throughout her life. And she just is this beautiful human being in the world. She's made such a difference in millions of people's lives. So I draw from Lorna's teachings. I draw from Flower Newhouse's teachings. and from my guardian and from many other authors. But to continue about my guardian. So I notice that when I'm walking in nature, I can feel her more clearly and I can receive her teachings more clearly. And the way she teaches is she sends her messages into my mind, and her messages become words in my mind. And that's the way Flower Newhouse described how she received angel messages. And it's just my experience also. So as I continued working with her, she taught me about how to relate to time differently. She taught me spiritual principles, spiritual teachings, how to understand nature in different ways. For instance, understanding that there's no fear in nature. That's why it's so calming to be in nature. Trees don't have fear. Water doesn't have fear. Air, grass, earth, there's no fear. And so when I'm walking in nature, my whole nervous system just calms down and I feel more at peace. She saved me from an auto accident once. I was driving in a hurried way to work and I was frustrated with traffic and I was rushing. And 3 times I heard her say, slow down. And it wasn't until the third time that I actually slowed down, but it made a difference because a car started to get into my lane and I could, put my brakes on and avoid an accident. And I actually apologized to her because I could have avoided the whole thing if I had just slowed down the first time she told me to do that. And I really humbly apologized to her because I did not heed her guidance soon enough and honor her effort to save me that struggle. So what she's telling me now is to teach more about the difference that guardian angels can make for us. And this is something Lorna Byrne teaches also in her books, that humanity is now meant to evolve to the point where we consciously work with our guardian angel on a daily basis. And it's time to lift the veil evermore between heaven and earth and to invite our guardian angels to work consciously with us, to teach us, to evolve us in consciousness. The greatest gift, well, let me not say it that way. How does this want to be said? Yeah, okay. So that's what she's saying. The greatest gift our guardian angel has to offer us, beyond the many gifts in our daily life, is to work with us on advancing our spiritual consciousness. Our guardian is attuned to our exact level of consciousness and to how to help us evolve step by step, moment by moment, in our spiritual understanding, in our spiritual advancement. And we'll do so with unbreakable love and compassion and belief in us. Any reticence we have, there's no problem. The patience our guardian has is inexhaustible. And they know when and how to introduce new ideas to us, to guide us to new teachings, new books, new authors, new experiences. My guardian angel, when one example of this is when she first brought to my mind in meditation the idea of starting an angel talk, that I would actually give an angel talk. And I was like terrified. You've got to be kidding me. Really? No. And so she was, very patient. And she worked out a way for me to find a space to do it. 2 colleagues who were very supportive and believed in me. And she helped me write the first one, select the date. and make it happen. My guardian angel made it happen. And she walked me through my fears step by step in ways that I never could have foreseen. And then the angel talk eventually became a monthly event, and it was wonderful. And my guardian planned each and every one, the spiritual principle, the things to teach, the meditation practices. She just planned everything. I could not have foreseen that. So that's an example of how our guardian angel can work with us, can help us grow new ways and cross our thresholds of fear into new growth, personally, professionally, spiritually, with the greatest patience, the most beautiful understanding of us at every level of our being, physical, spiritual, emotional, psychological. Our guardian angel has no ego. They're not threatened by the ego in any way. They can stand just outside the threshold of our ego, and I can be in the midst of my fear and reticence and rebelliousness, and she will just wait and maintain her love, her loving presence until I soften and I can accept her love at another deeper level. That's another example of how she works with me and how our guardian angels are available to work with us. So I think it's been about an hour now, just short of an hour. I want to make sure to leave time for questions. Let me just check in with her and see if there's anything else she wants me to share. Spiritual ascension is our most important process now as a humanity. And our answers come from heaven. And we are worthy of heaven's help in every aspect. And to have no fear of the ego or the ego's workings in the world, because heaven is so much greater and safer and wiser and loving. And we're always held in that love and greatly respected for being here. To choose a human life and come to Earth to help serve in the advancement of humanity is one of the greatest, most courageous acts that we can ever make as a soul. And we are entirely respected from heaven just for being here and learning our life lessons. So thank you for listening. I'm very grateful to be of service, and I hope something in what I've shared may be of help.
Wow. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much, Andrew, for all that you shared. Ooh, I just want to take a breath a second. Really, really beautiful. I can just feel the presence of the angels here with us. So just beautiful. All right. So I just loved everything that you shared. And one of the things that just kept popping out and with me is that the patience and the love that they have for us. And you know, I've experienced it in my own journey. That patience is beyond anything I've ever experienced from any human. It's just like when you're ready, there's no pushing, there's no pressure. It's just I they want us to be ready when we're ready, and when we are, then they're supporting us, and they're supporting us even when we're not ready. So it's just so beautiful. um I love how you talked about nature, and how nature has no fear, and how you communicated with your garden plants and how they flourished, and all of those kind of stories. That resonates so much with me too in my life. I love nature and trees, and the older I get, the more I just have such a connection with that.
Mm.
But I love how you talked about when you walk in nature, it kind of just clears all that fear out of you, and you're just back to who you truly are. So I wrote so much stuff down. Um yeah, I can't wait until your book comes out. It's going to be fantastic. And I love how in your journey, you are very much involved in, researching and learning about the angels through different books, but then also having your own experiences, right alongside that, which is that's tremendous, because once we know, right, once we experience and we learn for ourselves through our own experiences, that's when it really all solidifies, and it's wonderful. So I'm just gonna, yeah, I just wanted to say that. And I just love I mean, I could go on and on. I wrote so much stuff down, but I want to give, if anybody else would like to ask Andrew a question, or anybody has any comments or insights, please raise your hand. The raised hand function at the bottom of the screen, you can just click on that. And all right, I'm going to bring in Nick.
Andrew, Andrew, thank you so much. So enjoyable, so loving. Just the love just comes right through you, and you can, like you were just saying, you feel it. It's just there, and how wonderful that is. That is a gift. I want to ask you. I'm a longtime reader, more than 40 years. I've been studying an amazing book called the Urantia book, and the Urantia book has a lot of angel material in it. Are you aware of that book, and have you read it?
I've heard of it and I have not read it.
I highly recommend it, and I would love your reaction too, especially with what you were saying. I would really welcome any comments or thoughts that you would have. And if there's a way to give you at some point how to, my information so you can contact me later, and I could also send you the website. I'd be honored to do that. And the last thing is, I have a podcast, and sometime down the road, perhaps after you've taken a look at the Urantia book, because it is a Urantia book podcast, I would love you to be on it.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah. Please feel free to send me the link to your podcast and your email. And I've made a note about that and about the book. And I appreciate you letting me know. I always appreciate learning about new resources about angels. There are just so many. It's incredible. And so,
There's a lot of stories, and there's a lot of divisions of angels, which I never knew about. And that is very specifically spelled out in the Urantia book. And I think I'm going to have to warn you that, like potato chips, once you start reading the Urantia book, especially about the angels, you're going to lose a weekend, you're going to lose a month, because you're not going to put the book down. I'm telling you that as a friend, I'm telling you that right now. But thank you so much.
you're so welcome. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. All right, now we're going to have, let me just move that. And now we're going to have Cindy come in. All
Yes,
right.
that was great, Andrew. Thank you so much. There was so much in there that I'm really fortunate to have heard you say all this, because I'm realizing I've had my own guardian angel. She's been with me for consciously 10 years, and just this morning, and I haven't been listening to her recently. Her name is Melda, and she just, like, even speaking about her, I get shivers, because all she does is radiate love. And so this morning I had a busy day today. I took a few days off I have a beautiful 3.5 acre property with lots of trees and everything. And so anyway, I just said, okay, what's the most important? I said, okay, what is the most important thing for me today? And she was really clear. She just said, just love yourself. And that seems so simple, but she just said, every time you stop, remember, love yourself. Just love yourself. So, and what you were talking about, you know, and communicating with nature and the trees, and I'm just starting to really do that. And I'm starting to communicate with everything because I'm really listening more to people talk about how consciousness is in everything. And I even talk to my Jeep. I have never been attached to vehicles ever, but I just feel like I am at one with my Jeep. We're like buddies, you know, and it's the coolest thing. It's so cool. Anyway, I could go on and on. Thank you very much. I do have one question for you that I'm really interested in. I've only recently heard about it, the thing about energy signature. So my question is like, you know, because I've heard this, that we have this energy signature that's almost kind of like it defines our soul or like our unique soul. So then as we're expanding and growing over the lifetimes, that's what I'm wondering about is like, how does that energy signature change?
My understanding is it doesn't change. It's always the same. Even as we evolve and change, our energy signature is like an energetic expression of our purest self, our spirit, our soul. And it's always unique. And you know, the way I learned about this from my psychic and mediumship teacher is, you know, we can feel this. She would have us all, half the class sit in a row of chairs, and the other half the class would just slowly approach us from behind. And we would open up our aura, and we could feel the energy of the person as they approached us behind us. And so we did that not just with, you know, our class, but we also did it with our mediumship, where, for instance, you know, someone who's passed to the other side, our mother's energy signature will always be the same, or our father's, or any relative or a sibling who may have passed away. It's how we recognize who they are. And it can take time to learn to recognize, but one of the things that I write about in the book, and we can start practicing is, you know, in our daily lives, is to sit in meditation and ask our guardian angel to come really close to us in our aura and just be present with us and bask in their presence and just feel, what are the qualities of their presence? Do we sense wisdom, peacefulness, kindness, love? And just absorb that. And over time, we can learn to recognize when our guardian is with us, because we will feel the exact same presence in their energy signature every time. I hope that makes sense. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And I'm just thinking like with Melda, it's just this awesome, awesome love. And with my dad, who passed away 6 years ago, he's a prankster. And that's what I always feel like. I feel like he's still pranking. So I don't know if that makes sense, but like that contrast. And so does that mean my dad's always going to be a prankster, like that energy? It's like, because that's what it feels like.
I think you're touching in on that. Those are their energy signatures. And there's probably more to your dad's energy signature than just that, but it's surely a sign of his presence. That is part, I would say, that's part of his energy signature. And how beautiful that you've learned to recognize both your guardian angels and your fathers. That's really beautiful.
It's
Thank you
awesome.
very much. Thank
You're
you.
very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let me get who else was next? Oh, Jai. Am I saying it right? It's Jai?
Yes, it's okay, but it's G.
G. Okay, G.
Um,
Come in.
uh, Hello, Andrew. Yeah, I also have been experiencing the angels in sometimes in their physical form or tangible form, sometimes in my mind's eye, etc. But I feel based on what you related, I feel that when they do some nudges, like send signs, that we need to, my belief is that we need to um ask what those signs are for, excuse me, and not not just leave the sign as it is. Also, as a comment on what you said about talking with the plants, I'm no green thumb. I've been talking to plants and they still die, okay, under my watch. But I feel that that in those situations, what that tells me, okay, based on what you're saying, is that we cannot live in isolation. That's the message. We need to be to look after one another and share our strengths to those who are weak. So I feel that's the message there. Okay. Yeah. So now my question is, because I'm not really a believer of labels. So are the so-called what's this, spirit guides, I tend to consider them as also angels. So are is that also your belief, or are they different to one another?
In my learning from my psychic and mediumship teacher, spirit guides are different from angels. And I have not studied about spirit guides. I do believe that we have them and they help us. I just haven't studied a lot about them. Um, from the little bit that I learned, they can come from different spiritual traditions, and they can help us spiritually in many ways. I'm sorry, I don't know more about them, but I do believe that they exist. I just haven't studied them myself. My my guidance and my passion has been really about angels, and more specifically over time about guardian angels. You bring up a couple of other points, though, that I think are important to acknowledge. Guardian angels cannot go against our free will. They absolutely respect our free will. So if we want help from them, and this is not true only for guardian angels, it's true for every angel, archangels, any rank of angel there is. We need to give them permission by asking for their help. Once we ask for their help, then they can help us. But they need us to ask for their help because they can't go against our free will. And yeah, so thank you for bringing that up to my awareness also to clarify. G, I appreciate that. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And if I can add to that, if that's okay, I've had a lot of experiences with angels and spirit guides, so they are a little different, but they're all part of our team. So some people work more closely with the angels, and other people work more closely with spirit guides, or even a combination of them, and so, but they're all part of our higher self team, and we all have a team. So it's just like Andrew said, it's free will, and we do it, we like, they're not going to come and interfere in our life unless we really want that kind of connection. And so once we start to ask for those connections and to know more about our spirit team, that's when the doors will open. But usually, until we're asking in some way, they're not gonna interfere. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah. And I always myself, I always call in God. God is the main source. And I always make sure when I pray to God. And then, if I'm working with if I am working, spiritually with God, those other beings will come in different ways and show themselves to me and show me that they're also part of my team, and they're working for the highest and best good. So I hope that helps to clarify. Thank you.
And if I may, I'd like to build on what you just said also, Catherine. Angels can't go against our free will unless we're in mortal danger and it's not our time to pass from this lifetime. And then they can save us from death. And there are many stories of that happening from all over the world. And it leaves open the question, why are some people saved and why are some not? And that's a very deep and sensitive question. And I can't say that I have any clear answer for that. Just that what I've learned in my research is that if it's not our time to pass from this life and we're meant to stay because we have more work to do here, then, we won't be allowed to leave. And it's not really we won't be allowed, but they'll save us from dying. And yeah, so that's that. Also, the other thing that came to me while you were speaking, Catherine, is that one of the things that I've repeatedly been taught by my guardian is that our understanding of family is not just about human beings. Our family is heaven. Our family is our guardian angel. Our family is archangels. Our family is ascended masters. From any religious or spiritual tradition, all of heaven, all of angels, all of masters are our family just as much as anyone here. And that's part of the understanding that she wants to teach, is that we are not alone ever. And all of creation is our family, and to draw comfort from that. So yeah, thanks for.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for sharing that and for bringing up about the protection, because they will step in to protect us if it's not our time. Thank you. All right. So now I'm going to bring Nick in.
Yep. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Nick.
Just to give you a little bit history. Since 1982, I've been connected with them. And when I say them, I mean aliens, ETs. I was getting my software engineering degree. In 1982, they came, and they came hard with a nervous breakdown. And years and years and decades have passed. And as I'm talking to you, I still am connected with them. I'm a Hindu. I practice Hinduism, but they are controlling my thoughts. And I go to a temple and they will intervene in my thinking and not let me do the prayers. In terms of angels, I don't see any good angels for somehow. I've just gone through this so much. They're doing genetic real-time experimentations, finding cures for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and so many different variants of cancer. So angel-wise, for me, I'm not seeing much good. Last 1 or 2 years, I'm able to articulate what happened to me. And now I am articulating to you. Question would be, where do I fit in? I've been on meetups and Zoom sessions, and I kind of keep thinking where I belong. Are the angels there because I'm still here, despite their experimentations, which hurt tremendously? Brain operation, you want to call it, or whatever. I stick with my degree as a software engineer. I've worked many big companies, Abbott Labs and Motorola and others. But one interesting thing you mentioned about your car happened to me over
Nick,
a dozen times.
Nick, I want to ask you a question before, just hold on a second. Are these experiences still happening with you
Yes.
today? Okay.
Yes, as I'm talking to you, and when I woke up in the morning and afternoon, I started this Zoom session with you. I'm connected.
Okay, all right, so let's let Andrew maybe give maybe some feedback or insights about,
Okay.
what he might
Well,
suggest before you
one
go
quick thing.
on. Yeah,
Yeah, one quick thing. The accidents that I've seen, Andrew, the car accidents, as soon as I'm about to enter an accident, I get a message saying there's an accident. And most of the time it's not fatality, fatal, but sometimes I've seen fatal accidents, and they tell me because they are there. Their physics and their science is there.
okay. So you're getting premonition type of
More
awarenesses.
than premonition, it's real time. It's constantly there.
Okay. All right,
So,
let's let Andrew, go ahead, Andrew.
I have not done research on ET extraterrestrial. I think actually Catherine is far more versed in that realm than I am, and it sounds like you are also, Nick, that you've had a lot more experiences, and many people have. So I can't say that I can speak eloquently in that regard. What I did receive as I was listening to you was to read the books by Lorna Byrne
Hmm.
and absorb what she has to teach. And the books by Flower Newhouse. Flower Newhouse and her husband uh, created a spiritual retreat center in California in the Escondido area. It's called Quest Haven. It's still going to this day. And on their website, you can order her books. You can order audio DVDs or no CDs of her teachings. But the first thing I received when I listened to you was the books by Lorna Byrne.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
maybe you
yeah,
can write her, put her name in the chat for Nick, so Nick can.
sure. Yeah, be happy to do
Or
that.
not Burn, is it Burn or Bern?
It's Byrne,
Okay,
and there it is, Lorna Byrne.
okay, thank you. And what was the
Yeah.
other, what's the other woman?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Let me put that one into Flower A Newhouse. And then West Haven Retreat. Okay.
All right, thank you. It's in the chat, okay, Nick?
Okay, thank you.
Those two books, all right. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
I just want to respond some more to what you were saying. Angels were created before human beings, and they have overseen every age of human evolution. They were created to fulfill God's will on the planet. And they have been with us all along. And I think as Catherine mentioned earlier, there are more ranks and levels of angels than we're ever aware of. And both Lorna Byrne and Flower Newhouse taught that there are so many that we could spend a lifetime researching angels and never learn everything about them. So I just want to leave you with the thought that if you open up yourself and ask to be taught about angels, ask to be guided to learn about angels, and then pay attention to different signs you might get. You might be at a bookstore and a book kind of makes itself known to you, or you might even just being here, even being here, I think is not an accident. Actually, something drew you here and to receive this information. And so this is, probably a sign of support for you to learn more about angels. There are so many books about angels that if you just go on the internet and look it up, you'll find many, many books about them. It's the information is out there and it's readily available. So I just wish you peace. I wish you great peace in your heart and in your life.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it very much.
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you so much, Nick and Andrew. All right, now I'm going to invite Dominic to come in. Hi, Dominic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for sharing. It was lovely and wonderful, and you're a very loving being. Let's see. I'm gonna go. I was going to share something about an experience I had when I was in mortal danger, and I was rescued by a guardian angel. But before I go there, I want to refer back to what Nick was talking about. Now, I've studied spirituality all my life. I've studied aliens and abductions. I'm an experiencer myself. I've been on spaceships. So for me, in my life and in my journey, I don't tend to make clear distinctions between the different categories of, say, guardian angels versus spiritual teachers versus aliens. Because in the studies I've done, some of the alien races have wings and look like angels. And they're called Altians. It's a singular race of beings. They're a military race, but they have wings, just like angels. So they look like angels. And so we humans can perceive them as angels. But it's just one category of being among millions of categories of beings, aliens and angels and archangels, all filling space and time and beyond space and time. They're everywhere and all engaged in aiding humans and disembodied spirits and people on other planets. They're all engaged in healing and helping and loving, depending upon the depth of their capacity. But they're everywhere, and they're all mixed together in my brain. They're not separate categories in my understanding. So, but anyway, in referring to guardian angels, once in the 1980s, I was driving down the freeway, rushing to the airport to pick up a friend of my husband's who had unexpectedly arrived at the airport, and I was cooking dinner, and I had to drop everything and run to the airport and pick up this person. So I was driving and I was late, and I was going 80 miles an hour down the fastest lane on the freeway. And my brain was, filled with what I'm going to cook for dinner and blah, blah, blah. And my brain was just going blah. And I was speeding down the highway, and all of a sudden this voice comes in my head, interrupts my thoughts. It's not a male voice. It's not a female voice. It's like a neutral, non-male, non-feminine voice, very calm, very clear, interrupts my thoughts, and it says, "Move to the right shoulder of the road now." I look around, like, who said that? And I look to my right, and this is in LA, 5 lanes on going each way. I mean, it's usually bumper to bumper. It was, evening hour. And for some reason, 5 lanes of traffic were clear. There was no car right there. So I just pulled my car over. I went 5 lanes over, pulled up to the right shoulder of the road. And the minute my car slowed down and hit the right shoulder of the road, my left front tire blew to smithereens. It literally flew apart, and my front hood of my front of my car dropped down on that side. It was on the metal rim, and I went, "Oh my God." Who did that? Who said that? Whoever it was, they just saved my life. But I kept asking myself, who said that? Who said that? Who was it? I don't recognize the voice. How'd they get in my head and interrupt my thoughts? So I was just like, my head was really spinning, trying to understand how they could intervene and talk and just come right in your head.
I love that story. That is incredible, Dominic. Thank you for sharing that. It's amazing.
It's great. Thank you, Dominic, for sharing that. Wonderful.
And I'm so happy that you're safe and alive. What a blessing. And it just highlights. I mean, I can't say I know exactly who that was. I don't know, but that's the perfect example of how a guardian angel can work with us. And there are thousands of examples of those in the literature about angels all over the world. The incredible, miraculous things they do that are beyond physics and time. They're just amazing. It reminds me of a story about a firefighter who got called out to a fire, who didn't really believe in angels, but had kind of been introduced to them. And he got in his car and he was about to pull out, and his guardian very clearly said, "Get out of your car right now." I don't remember exactly what was said, but it was basically like, "Don't move your car." And he started to argue with it, and the voice got louder and said, "Absolutely, get out of your car and walk behind your car." And he walked behind his car, and his daughter was sitting against the back bumper of the car playing with her sand shovel. I mean, the things they can do that are just so unbelievable and so loving and miraculous. And what you shared was so inspiring, Dominic. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I also wanted to just put in the chat. Again, I don't know a lot about extraterrestrials, but this was a book that I read quite a few years ago. And I might not have it exactly right. The Arcturian Anthology by Tom Kenyon. Tom Kenyon is a sound healer, but that book does absolutely talk about extraterrestrials and his experiences being drawn into UFOs and what he learned there. So, and those of you who are well versed in that world, you probably recognize that, but it was a new opening of understanding for me.
Wonderful. Thank you. I wanted to just share a little bit, if I can, about some of my understandings about angel interactions and, different spirit guides and things like that. So the way I understand my own journey is that that I planned my challenges before I incarnated into this body with my spirit team, that, I chose what I wanted to accomplish in this particular incarnation. And I chose who my parents were going to be, what my challenges would be growing up, and what I would have to overcome in order to, move through on a spiritual evolution and path. And so I believe that a lot of these experiences that are like near misses, right, where an angel kind of speaks into our head and tells us to do something, or any other kind of way that they can come through to us, that we actually kind of plan that out with them before we come here, and that is kind of like a turning point in our evolution. So then we're able to draw upon that, and it helps us to wake up. It helps us to into more of who we truly are and our spiritual life. And I just want to tell a quick story of something that happened to me when I was younger. I would say about 20 years ago, at least, maybe 25. I was going through a lot of loss, a lot of grief, a lot of grieving, a lot of relationships were changing. And I remember it was like Christmas time, holiday time, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And, you have that whole Hallmark, thing in your head, the way it's all supposed to be with the perfect family and everybody's all, oh, it's Christmas time. And meanwhile, I'm in this funk. I'm in this really, sad place because there's been so much loss and grieving and just not in a good place at all. Feeling really, really bad, which we all go through that, we all go through that. We go through a lot of loss in life. And so, really, it was one more person in my life that was important to me. And I was feeling like, something was wrong. And so I started to have all of these negative thoughts in my head about not really wanting to be here, which I wasn't going to check out or anything, but I was having that thought. I get in my car and I go to the post office. It is about 15 minutes to 5, and the post office closes at 5. I have to mail out this card. And so I'm driving to the post office, and it's not that far from me, but the whole time I'm in the car, I'm, thinking about how terrible my life is and all this negative stuff. Right. So I pull into the parking lot. Nobody else, no one else is around. And I stop the car, and all of a sudden this very old jalopy pulls up next to me. Okay. And the car is so old that it's like the paint is peeling off. It's one of those big box cars from, like, I don't even know, maybe it was from the 1980s or something. The duct tape on the window. I mean, there wasn't even windows. There was plastic on the windows by duct tape. And I look next to me, I'm getting out of the car, and I look and I see this dog in the passenger seat, right? And he's in like a little bed. And then I look next to the dog, and there's a cat, and then there's another cat on the floor, and there's several more dogs and cats in the back seat. And I'm like, oh my God, there's all these animals. So I walk around to the driver's side, and the woman rolls her window down, right? And she is this elderly woman. She probably was 60s, I would say, at the time. So she was older than me. And it looked like her hair has not been washed in, a week. Her clothes were, and the smell that came out of this vehicle was just like, I could not even describe the smell, the odor. And I asked, and I knew she was living in that vehicle with those animals. I knew it. I just said to her, I said, where do you live? And she said, oh, I don't really have a home. And I said, oh, and I said, and I tried to help her. So I said, I know of some resources that if you are homeless, they can put you at the top of a list, and you can go into an apartment. They can help you get an apartment. And I started to ask her about, if she was in the mental health system and if she had different, resources or tapped into anything, because I was aware of that from a family member that had been through the mental health system. So she just said that she didn't want to give up her family. So in order for her to go into any kind of housing, she would have to give up all of her animals, and they were her family, and she didn't want to do that. So I said, well, where do they go to the bathroom? Like, where do you and she said, oh, I have a friend. She lets me bring them to her property. And now I realize, oh, it's like 5 to 5. I said, all right, let me just get this, envelope inside in the mailbox. I'll be right out, because I want to tell you one more thing. Right. And she's like, okay. So I run into the post office. I drop it in the box. I come back out. I'm telling you, that may have taken me 30 seconds. That is how quick it was. When I got back out, she was gone. Her vehicle was nowhere in sight. I didn't see her pulling out of the parking lot. I mean, she was gone. It was like she totally disappeared. And I got in my car, and I just started to pray and thank God. I mean, I prayed for her to please help her, but I also was thanking God for my life, for everything in my life, for how grateful I am that I have this, warm house to go home to, and I have, everything I need, and like how dare I complain, And so what I realized after that is that this woman was an angel that just like she fell out of the sky for me at that very minute where I was so distraught. I was so depressed. And I mean, that experience like smacked me right out of my, smacked me. You know, I got home, I was a new person. I love to be in my cozy little living room with in my little cozy chair with my feet up, and I can just click my TV on, I can open my fridge, and my animals are all, I mean, I had like everything I saw then on was just amazing, you know? So that was, yeah, that was my angel. That was one of my beautiful turning point angel experiences, and I will always be grateful for that in my life. And God bless that woman, that angel. I think she was a human angel that was walking the earth, or maybe she was really an angel that just appeared, you know. So yeah, so
That's so beautiful. Thank you, Catherine.
thanks for letting me share that.
Oh, gee, that's wonderful.
Thank you. All right, now we have Erin. Let me bring Erin in.
Hi, thank you so much. You have reminded me of many things. Um, um, you know, the angel experiences when I had my NDE 25 years ago, my first one anyway. I was living in a 16 by 16 shed at the time, and I had gotten really sick from the place I was living. And I remember walking into the hospital like on my own power. But as time went by, I I I had a sticky black hand that came and grabbed my lips from the inside and pulled everything inside, and I was self-imploding. And when they called my name to go back, the only thing I could do was raise my hand and my finger. And so they took me in the back, and the nurse was at the big desk, and she's standing up and she's holding the phone, and she goes, "Are you Erin McAdam?" And I went, "Yes." And she goes, "Your daughter's on the phone." And my daughter had no idea where I was. I mean, because she didn't live with me or anything. And so they take me back in, and, you know, things happen. And I ended up crossing over to the other side because I was so sick from hepatitis A. And, you know, when I was there, I had this big voice that was booming, "It's not your time." And I was like, "No, I worked really hard to get here. You don't understand." And then I got the message again was, "It's not your time. You have more left to do." And I was very angry, and I said, "No, you don't understand. I tried really hard 8 times to get here, you know, trying to take my own life." And then the next thing I know is I'm waking up and I'm pissed. And there's a male nurse looking down at me, goes, "You guys always come back all pissed off." I was like, "Well, no kidding, right?" And so I ended up leaving against medical advice and walking down to Alhambra Avenue, and I sat in a bus stop, and it started to rain, and I sat there questioning if what happened really happened, you know, running through all this stuff in my mind. And with your talk today, it reminded me of some of the things that I had promised Creator that I would do and who I would be. And I would try to be the best person that I could be, right? And one of those things was to write. And I have lots of things that I've written, you know, anyway, lots and lots of notebooks and books started and stuff. So thank you for that, because yeah, anyway, so as the day went on, it became nighttime, and I didn't even have my shoes because I had thrown those in a hazmat bin inside the hospital because I knew that they were poisoned. And so I think to myself, I better do something. I think I'll try to go call my daughter. And so I make my way over to the phone booth, and I'm standing there, and I could, you know, I was like, oh, just weirded out and stuff. And I tried to get my little phone book out, and there's a brown Camaro that pulls in the driveway, and out gets this gentleman, and he walks up to me, and he looks at me and he goes, "Do you need to make a phone call?" I was like, yes. And he goes, do you have any money? I was like, no. And he takes some change and he puts it in the phone for me. And he sees that I can't even hang on to the address book or the phone or anything. And he goes, who are you trying to call? So I pointed it out. He pushed the numbers. He handed me the phone. He got back in his car and he left. That was it. Right. That was just one of the little examples like that have happened in my life. And there have been quite a few of those things that have happened. And, like Catherine, you were talking about this woman that you saw. And whenever now in my lifetime, now, the past 25 years, when I think things are going really bad, invariably, I will take a drive and I will see one homeless person and think, there, but for the grace of God go I, because that was me. Mm. And when it's really, really bad, he'll put a bunch of them together for me. And it's like, oh my gosh, thank you. And, I just know that my life is blessed today, truly blessed. And thank you so much for what you said. And you talked about when your third eye opened up, you saw purple. A few months after this whole thing had happened with me, I was doing a meditation that this woman was guiding. And it was in a treatment setting because I was not quite all together. But she said, okay, everybody close your eyes. Now in your mind's eye, and as soon as she said that, I had a great big purple eye that I could see with my eyes closed and it's blinking, right? and it's purple and it's like got a little purple glitter in there, but it looks like a cat's pupil, And the interesting thing is when I'm using my third eye, everything that I view is purple. So it was like, oh, okay, he's got that too. So thank you so very much. I really appreciated your talk.
You're welcome, Erin, and thank you. Thank you so much. And while you were speaking about writing, what I heard numerous times is the world needs your stories.
I've been told that many times. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
You're
I'm moving
welcome.
into a new office on July 1st because I'm reopening my healing and mediumship business and my practice, not business. And I was receiving the message here when you were talking, I was writing, and it was like, this is where you need to go do that. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yay, that's so great.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. You're muted, Catherine.
Sorry, I said thank you for sharing all that, Erin. That's beautiful. And now we have Aaron. Erin and Aaron. Hold on a minute. Here's Aaron.
Thank you, Catherine, for this amazing platform. And Andrew, thank you for a most beautiful and very eloquent, angelic talk. It's left me courageous and inspired. I think from a young age, I have been governed by divine phenomenon. I think in recent times, due to what might be considered maybe Thomas Aquinas's dark night of the soul, and a real strong test in faith, I've found a stronger direction and a path in which I need to bring a certain avocation to the world. And just on the precipice where it's darkest before the dawn, I've been feeling almost targeted, and almost everything in the way that could go wrong would go wrong. And even trying to explain the situation to other people would leave me ostracized on account of them purely not believing the goings on. But in the spirit of prayer, the right people have come out of the woodwork. Spiritual advisors, spiritual healers, people who have restored my faith. And the old Christian adage comes to mind, that you're walking down the beach And you look behind, we see one set of footprints, and the dark night of the soul, we say, why me? Why God, at this time do you leave me alone, and everything is happening in such a bad manner, for want of a better expression? And then he talks to me and says, "Sir, then my son, that is when I was carrying you. They're my footprints, you see." So I do believe that I've been in tune with these divine sources in a realm beyond our senses. And I think they've given me the ability to not only see and feel in a very potent kind of manner, but to, maybe to my detriment on some occasion, expose bad behavior and tell people that their ways are probably not quite just. And I became targeted, let's just say the family situation. And it's been hard at times for me to step out of victimhood, but I love the Christian, Judeo-Christian rituals. Even the Catholic ceremonies are very, very beautiful. And even the Eastern philosophies. But I don't put any particular labels on the helpers that I get, in that they're just helpers behind the scenes. I don't know if they're angels or ETs or whatever. I like to just call them my helpers. And if I look even to the Japanese culture or Neoplatonist reference, they are characters of all shapes and forms and sizes. And there's one in particular that I always rely on, who does have wings and armor and a kind of avian face. And I used to read these little books at home, and they'd have these adventures about these people in them. But when I go and mention them to any member of my family, and I used to love these books, they never remember them at all, which is really rather interesting for me. I remember on quite a few occasions I'd be walking through a city, be it Melbourne in Australia or Perth or Dublin, and the band Manic Street Preachers comes to mind, because I think they're talking very similar to what Erin and Catherine mentioned before. Just to say, there's a fine line between spiritual awakening and psychosis. And I'd find these people preaching or something on the streets, and I'd see that most of the people were walking by them, but the message that they had was direct for me in that given moment and correlated specific to my circumstances. So it was almost like a divine message from who knows, but those episodes of high strangeness are so frequent. That I loved what you said, Andrew, about your free will. And once I acknowledge these helpers behind the scenes, they tend to kind of come out of the woodwork more and more and more, and even incarnate, usually in the form of animals. I had a most beautiful long-haired white cat with a scarred eye, who was a real ruffian, who was always getting in fights. And I brought him in from my home inside in a house that I was renting. And I thought, here am I looking after you at the time, aren't you? You great, I'm going to make you a little bit more civilized and less of a stray. And he'd bite me at times in the middle of the night, and I'd have to put a towel around him and bring him back downstairs and put him politely outside the door and say, "Now, don't do that again. That was really rather wild of you, And it's years later that I seen that in that time of need, that was a messenger there to give me help. And I was ego-driven enough to think that I was helping that cat, There's another time, there's two other little kittens that just seemed to jump on the scene, and they spent the whole time in my bed, welcoming me in the morning, greeting me in the evening, and they'd go near nobody else in the house. But it's only in hindsight I get to realize that this was help from behind the scenes, giving me the love that I could not find from anywhere else. To say I feel ostracized on occasion on account of my fairly ardent connection and my ability to talk to others about these mysterious kinds of strangeness or high strangeness episodes, to the extent that I've somewhat become a pariah and ostracized. With your talk and what you've described, it's given me the ability to free that up and to be confident again, to be able to share it and say it and talk about it in an open manner and not really care what the rest of the world thinks. So most graciously, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I found the information very endearing, and your eloquent manner in which you spoke, very, very beautiful. So thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Erin. That's so beautiful.
And I think that our pets are angels also. So as he jumped up on me before. But go ahead, Andrew. I don't want to.
It's beautiful what you say. And actually, there are many stories of angels showing up as animals, and as there's all kinds of animals. In fact, Jenny Smedley is an angel author I discovered in the past year or so, and she has one of her books is full of angel animal stories. And angels have shown up as animals and saved people's lives simply from an animal form too. So it's beautiful, and I love your story about the cat, and how we think we're serving an animal and they're serving us in a greater way than we ever know. I love that. Thank you, Aaron.
They come on the scene just when we need them the most. It's awesome. Thanks, Aaron. All right. All right, so we're coming up on the hour here, and I just want to ask if there's any last minute questions or brief shares anybody would like to say before we go. I don't see any hands. Andrew?
May I ask a question?
Oh, is that Nick? Oh, okay. Hi, Nick. I have two.
Nick. Which one?
So go ahead, Nick. You can go.
Okay, just a quick, I want to share something that relates to what you were saying before, and that I was very young, maybe 7 years old, and I was near the ocean with my parents, but I strayed a little bit, and there was this wall made of stone, and it was about 4 feet high, and I jumped up on that, and I just started walking on it, not realizing that as I was walking slightly up, the ground on both sides of the wall was going down. And it ended up, I ended up not realizing it, but I was probably 1 story, maybe 2 stories high. And when I realized it, I realized I was in danger of slipping and falling, because if I had fallen off that wall, it wasn't like 2 feet away, it was a lot, very, very dangerous. And I lost my balance, Andrew. I totally lost my balance, and I was falling backwards. And at that point, what I wanted to share with you is that I felt this gentle push on my shoulders, on my back, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but it pushed me back up and made me again balanced on this wall. And it was just, I didn't know what had happened. And I slowly walked all the way down to safety. I want to share that with you.
That's so beautiful. That's another wonderful example of a guardian angel intervention.
Oh boy.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Life's changing. Absolutely life changing.
That's beautiful. And Nick, I just wanted to invite you also you had mentioned sharing your podcast and your email. So I want to invite you to put that in the chat if you like. To let me know.
The way I'm set up, I can't.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Well,
so
why don't
sorry.
I'll just put in my email
Okay.
and you can email me.
Okay.
Is that
Yes.
okay.
Absolutely will. I can take my phone and photograph it. That's the
Okay.
best way I think I can do that.
Nick, what's the name of your podcast? Where can people find your podcast?
Oh, it's on Blog Talk Radio, and
Blog
it's called the Urantia Book with Nick Curto, CURTO, and it's on the fourth Saturday of each month from 9 to 10 o'clock. It's live. And also Blog Talk Radio has recorded my program, so you can see the past, you can hear rather the past ones also. I have one about ET UFO with interviews of people who have had experiences. I have one which I told you about, the Urantia book. And when you see what the angels are about there, I'm telling you, Andrew, I can't, I'm excited for you, really. Wait till you see, once you read this. And the third one is called The Creative Process. And I interview people that are creative in all fields. It could be a choreographer, a painter, a poet, anything with creativity. And I interview them, asking them where their creative come from, were their parents creative, What are you doing? What's the process of creativity? So those are the 3 programs, and they're all on the Saturdays from 9 to 10.
And that's Blog Talk Radio.
Blog Talk Radio. Yep.
I remember that I got to be on your Blog Talk Radio for a talk. That was really nice.
Absolutely wonderful. Yeah.
Really fun.
Thank
So-
you, Nick. I'll look you up on the internet. Thank you so much.
My
And
pleasure.
That Urantia book, I want to warn you, Andrew, it's not a light pamphlet.
Catherine, you spilled the beans.
Wait till- when Nick mentioned a weekend read, I think we're talking.
Okay, I lied. Catherine, you got me. I lied. It's 2,000 pages, but on the index, you'll see where the angels are listed. Those are the ones you should go to first.
You can break it. You can use it as a door stopper when you're done reading it.
Oh,
It's-
Catherine. Oh.
I mean that in a good way. It's thick. But I think you'll enjoy it. All right. So let me see if anyone, we have B.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hold on one sec. Let me bring you in. Okay.
I'm an artist, and coincidentally, there's 2 angels behind me here. I don't know if you can see because I don't have the
Yes.
lights really bright, but it's just I thought, boy, we're all talking about angels. There's the male angel there, and there's the female angel. She's nude, and there's all kinds of stuff. It's surrounded by a heart, and so it's, how nice, and how I felt also Andrew's loving testimony. So I felt love, and I kind of needed that when I first signed it on, because I was kind of feeling a little grumpy. And somebody mentioned a Jeep and how they were attached to it. I think it was
That was Erin, I believe. Was that Erin?
Cindy.
Oh, that
That
was
was me,
I'm
Cindy.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have a quick story. It happened quite a few years ago. I had my first car that I ever owned myself was a Jeep Wrangler, and I was in love with it. I was so happy to have just my own. Didn't belong to anybody else, and it was so exciting. And I just had a lot of love affair with it. It was like a khaki green, and oh my goodness. And so the day before my mother's 80th birthday party, I was at an outlet mall here in Florida. And as I was walking toward my Jeep, my holy precious, well, probably 8-year-old or 7-year-old Jeep, it wasn't that old, maybe. And about 20 feet away, I heard an inner voice say to me, "See that car?" And I stopped with one foot in front of the other. And I acknowledged in my head saying, "Yes." And it said, "Don't be attached." And at that moment, I imagined an umbilical cord from my belly button to the tire, and from my belly button releasing, and it was released. And I had paused. I had been pausing. And then I just walked up with when you get now I'm a little bit more in tuned, but when you get those and you're not really in tuned to angelic or messages, you're like, what's that about? Yeah, gotta drive. I gotta go to, I gotta get ready for my mom's birthday party. So the next morning I woke up, went downstairs in my condo garage, and my car's missing. And I'm like, I know where I parked my car. It's in my parking spot. And it was missing. Apparently there was a rash of autos theft, and it was stolen. But I had lost that attachment that moment that the umbilical cord had been released. So I walked into a Jeep dealership to replace it. And a girl was saying, and I was a little bit phobic because I hadn't driven for so long. I'd lived in Manhattan. A girl was saying, "I want a Grand Jeep Cherokee because I was just in a head-on collision and my life was spared because of this car." And at that moment, I knew that I could be courageous and drive cross country to visit my family all the way across the United States in a strong car that I would not feel afraid of because I had a fear. And it changed my life, and I was able to be much more mobile and drive around and still have a Jeep, but a different one. So I wanted to share that. Thank you all like-minded people for listening to that story.
Love it.
Thank you, B. That is a beautiful story. Just what a wonderful example of a spiritual intervention that was so perfectly attuned. That's incredible. Thank you. I just wanted to say that I believe every religion has good to offer and was born from a pure source of inspiration. And it's the human ego that has maybe brought changes or misunderstandings over time since the pure source of inspiration. But angels themselves don't have to be attached to any religious teaching. They are their own order of being created by God, and they will help anybody. And everybody has a guardian angel. It doesn't matter if anyone is a religious person, has any religious leaning or any spiritual leaning. They are absolutely devoted to every human being on the planet, no matter who we are and no matter what we've done. They look right through our mistakes, any regret, any shame, any guilt. They see right to our source of our original creation as beings created by God. And that's what they focus on and believe in. And so they love us unconditionally, and they will help us in every way possible, no matter who we are, where we are on the planet. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Just like the car thing has been very interesting. One time I was with my ex-husband with our two little kids, and we had driven up to go camping, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and the campsites, the whole place was full. So we stopped right at the entrance, and I heard, "Go right." So I said, "Go right." And so we went right, and no more than a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile, there was a fatal auto accident where people were in the back of a truck and got ejected. And I was able to go and help these people, at least the woman that went down the embankment, and take them to end up going to the hospital with them and take care of them and stuff. And then there was another time when I was driving home in rush hour traffic, crossed 3 lanes, and a car, 2 or 3 cars ahead of me, I don't know what happened to it, but all of a sudden it starts rolling, and it rolls over into the center of the freeways. So I pull over and I run across the freeway, pull her out, run back across, get in my car and leave. It's like, a lot of strange stuff like that, being put in the path of people who really needed help. Like somebody was choking, and I just ended up running into him and was able to give him the Heimlich, half a Heimlich, to help him. But then there was a phase where I was called to help others cross. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's influenced by angels or by my guides. I don't know. There's so many times in my life like that.
It's wonderful that you're so open and receptive. And I believe that because you are helped in so many ways. And that's true for all of us. If we're open and receptive and inviting, and we ask for help, they'll help us. And thank you for sharing the inspiration of your examples.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It was the car thing. Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Andrew, so very much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. This was so wonderful. And I know that I am sure everyone got so much out of it. I know I did. And it's been such a pleasure. I'm so happy that you that you accepted my invitation to come and speak, and that this is your very first time speaking, and you just did such a fantastic job. I mean, I love that you trusted your angels, and that, you know, you were told, oh no, we're not going to use that paper. You're gonna just allow. And boy, they come through, right? They really came through for you. Your angel was here the whole time, and I can feel I feel like there's more than one. I feel like you have a team of them that are working with you. It's just beautiful. So thank you so much, Andrew. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Catherine.
Andrew.
I really
you, Andrew.
appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate all your stories and all the inspiration we shared. And thank you. And I just wish everyone 1,000 angels in your lives, blessing you and protecting you and guiding you in every way.